On today's episode of Let's Talk Dog Business, find out how you are potentially losing thousands of pounds in your business. How many conversations have we had this week with people that struggle when they do actually get somebody on the phone who's inquiring about booking their services?
We've had a few this week. We have had... I panic and I try not to, but I end up going into salesy speak. I try and just be conversational, but then I end up trying to give too much value. So there's a nice conversation here that we can have about giving value versus trying to sell yourself and overgive.
And trying to solve on that call.
Yeah, yes.
I think that's easily done, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, so many people, if you are having conversations with your clients, firstly, a star, big shiny gold star, amazing. Because I still think a lot of people in all industries, but again, very heavily in this one, will email inquiries back and do lots of telling on an email. I know we've touched on this before. But what do you actually say when you do get somebody on the phone? Because it's not taught, is it? And even when you said there, like, it's salesy, there's no like legit thing for what salesy is, but everybody's got an idea of what that comes across as. So,
and someone's perception of salesy might be very different from the next person's, actually.
Yeah. So what's your perception of salesy?
When I think of salesy, I think of going in a shoe shop.
A shoe shop?
Yes.
Was not what I thought you were going to say.
We like using shoe analogies on this podcast, don't we? Right, so I walk into a shop, not necessarily a shoe shop then, and I'm perusing and I'm pounced upon. And somebody's there on my shoulder going, hello, can I help you? Is there anything you need? What can I help you with? What can I get you? Is there anything specific you're looking for? And I'm like, whoa, that is like too much. I haven't even walked around the shop. I haven't even been able to take it all in. I don't really know what I'm looking for, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I don't want somebody to, if I want the help, I will approach a salesperson for help. I don't expect to be literally swooped on when I walk into a shop. And I said shoe shop because you tend to find in certain shoe shops, I'm thinking of shops like, sorry for the international listeners here, but like Clark's Shoes or something like that.
Clark's Shoes?
I don't know why.
What demographic are you talking to?
Actually, I've got some Clark's shoes. They're really comfortable. But what I'm trying to say is that when you've got a shoe shop, when you've got a shop like that, it's quite a specific thing that somebody's gone in for, right? Because a pair of shoes.
It's getting from bad to worse, this is.
So, yeah. And so there's sales assistants that are there to help you. And they're normally just stood at the back of the shop, aren't they? Just lurking and waiting for you to ask them a question. But some of them do. And then some of them come over before you've even thought about what it is you're looking for. So I like somebody to be there on hand to answer any questions I've got, or can I have size X in these shoes? But I don't expect somebody to be there like micromanaging my experience in that shop.
Yeah. See, salesy to me, the first connotations that come to mind are car dealerships.
That was another one I was going to use an example of, actually.
Yeah. And maybe it's because my background was predominantly working in the automotive sector as well. So I could very clearly see it. And you'd walk in, because I used to do a lot of like mystery shops for dealerships as well, just to see what the experience was like. And you'd walk in and you're literally just scanning the room, aren't you, to see like what are the cars in the new car area. And you'd feel like everyone suddenly, typically men, let's stereotype it in that scenario, that's where my brain goes, would just all look at you. And certainly being a woman, like feeling really pressurized that, oh, they're really going to take the piss out of me for being in that environment by myself and make assumptions. So even if I was with Darren or a male friend, they would always go and speak to the male part of whoever I was with on these mystery shops. And I was like, that's a little bit presumptuous of you. But then they would also make you feel that if you were looking at a certain car, and you may have literally just like cast your eye over it and just looked at it, they go all in then on selling the bits and bobs on it. It's like,
of the
features, that's the word I was looking for. Yeah, the whole like, oh, yeah, that comes with that kind of trim, and then that comes in this colour and this colour, and it does this and it does that, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I'm not actually interested in that car. I wanted to look at something else and like, oh yeah, well that car's got X, Y, Z. And they're almost like following you around, but just listing off all the stuff that comes with that car. I'm like, I'm not really understanding here what the car can do for me. Is it going to suit my lifestyle? Like, how big is it? And I just think it's a trick that is so missed. And I think sales, certainly in the stereotype car dealership example, is a bit better than it was. I can't say I've been in it recently, so I don't know. But that's the picture I think of when I think typical sales.
Yeah, that is a better analogy than the one I came up with.
Yeah, I couldn't connect with you in a shop. I can't say I've experienced that in a shoe shop.
I have actually a few times. I have. Now,
but again, like different perceptions already of an experience in a shop.
Now, I want to spin this a little bit because I've got an example of sales in a less obvious way. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to talk about the way to do it wrong and the way to do what we would say right, but a better experience for the client, for the customer. So when I worked in rescue, I think they've changed the process since I left. This was many, many moons ago now. But you used to be able to walk around the kennels and look at all the information about the dogs. So it's basically their plus points and maybe not so plus points actually, because it would say things like not suitable for children, whatever. So you got a bit of an idea about what kind of dog you could possibly have of the selection that they had. And then you would go to reception, ask about the dog, and then a member of staff would be called and you'd go into a room together and talk about the dog and then potentially get the dog out for a walk, and it goes from there. So what would sometimes happen is that somebody would have that dog that they'd seen in a kennel so set in their mind that they liked the look of it. Funnily enough, we've been having conversations with dog training clients talking about making decisions about buying them on the looks this week, which, as I'm sure all of you will relate to this, you can, it's familiar to you, that conversation with people. But they might come and they've got their heart set on a dog and they're not thinking about all of the actual realistic parts of owning that dog. So they're just seeing this nice fluffy thing in front of them and not necessarily thinking, is it the right dog for our lifestyle? So depending on who dealt with the person, it might be a case of just going, oh, okay, that's great. We'll get the dog out for you then and see how it goes. And for me, that is failing that potential customer of that dog or potential owner of that dog. Because if you don't find out about what that person actually wants from a dog, what they expect from a dog, what their lifestyle allows a dog to fit into or not fit into, which is as important, how can you match the person with the dog? Yeah. And so this is where there was always a bit of a battle for me when I worked in rescue, because that's exactly the way I would do it. I would want to find out all about them, what it is they're looking for, what it is they want, what a dog could bring to their life, but also what a dog could hinder their life, how the dog could hinder their life if they don't get the right dog. Like, what could happen if that did, if it did get to that point. So as much information about that person is required so that you can make an assessment on whether that is potentially going to be the right home for that dog. And then what would happen if the person was a match I would go out and take the dog for a walk, and then we'd arrange at least a couple more visits where they would come back, because again, you want somebody to actually make sure they're making the right decision. And if everybody in the family wasn't present, they would come back, everybody would come back and they'd meet the dog in that way, and then a home visit and, you know, all the formal stuff after that. So I think in terms of that match of the client and the product, let's call the dog a product for the time being for this.
Yeah.
It's that part that's missing a lot of the time, and the information isn't drawn out about the person's needs, wants, and expected outcomes.
Yeah, it's so true. I'm curious because I could be wrong, but I feel like, based on how well I know you now, that approach went out the window when you started offering your own services as a dog trainer.
It did.
Why?
I didn't see it in the same way. I just couldn't. It's a really good question.
Thank you.
Anyone would think you've been podcasting for a while. I think two things. One, I felt like a dog and I couldn't generalise it to other aspects of life. Maybe. And two, I think it comes back down to confidence again, because I didn't have that confidence to know what I really wanted and what I was really good at and what I should have stuck to and what I should have, in my heart, known that I should have done as a best practice for that client. And I think it's probably a lack of confidence and a lack of support around me to build that confidence up.
Lack of confidence in what?
In my ability to deliver it, probably.
Deliver the service?
Maybe deliver the service, or maybe deliver what I was, in my head, I wanted the client to achieve. Maybe I felt like I wasn't the person to do that. Yeah, so I guess it is delivering the service, isn't it? It's the maybe wasn't thinking of the outcome enough. Yeah. I know it's a really difficult question to answer, because logically I should have been able to just do the same.
Yeah. And weirdly, I don't know.
I think it's the pressure of people around you in the industry. Actually, I'm thinking about it now. My head is going through it. I think it's that. Maybe in me, I knew that's what I should be doing. And then because the social pressure of everybody else doing it that way, of just doing 6-week classes and ad hoc sessions and that kind of format, maybe I just thought, well, you can't apply that to dog training.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? It's like my gut feel on, I don't know, I feel so far removed from the person that I once was when I started this journey, but my gut feel now, and I could be completely wrong, is that we as business owners in this industry, I mean, we could argue it's a little bit in other industries as well, but there's almost like this underlying fear of not earning enough that month. So actually you don't tend to think about anything aside from really trying to make yourself look super fucking awesome so that someone will say yes and give you some cash. And maybe that comes down to a little bit on what you're saying about how everybody else is doing it, like that pressure of nobody's teaching anything different. Nobody knows anything different. Like we're all just muddling our way through, aren't we?
Yeah, we're all like lemmings in a way in the dog
Lemmings.
training industry, dropping ourselves off a cliff, basically.
What a weird old game that was.
I used to love it though. But it is almost like that. I can't think outside the box. I've just got to do what the person in front does and just end up going on that same journey and burning myself out because it doesn't work. That the model doesn't work. So why do we keep on this hamster wheel of doing it?
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
But ultimately, this is how you will lose thousands of pounds in your business. Dollars, whatever other currency that you're working in. You will lose money in your business if you do not get this process right, because it's turning people off. And the sales is the the crucial part in that business machine that allows you to do what you do best, which is delivering your dog service.
Yeah.
You can't do it if no one's paying for it.
No.
Doesn't matter the value of the service in terms of the investment, whether it's £10 or £1,000 or £2,000. It makes no difference because you can't deliver that service if no one's saying, I'll take it. You could even try and give it away for free, but if nobody wants it and you're not doing a very good job at the sales process bit, they're still not going to take it.
No.
You can't give it away.
So when you're on a sales call with a potential dog training client, what are your priorities, would you say, on that call?
My priorities are to set out expectations of the call from the get-go. So as soon as I'm on the phone, I say things like, thank you ever so much for booking this call with me. Really appreciate your time. Firstly, I want to find out a little bit more about what it is that's made you inquire. But secondly, I want to see if we are going to work well together and if we're going to be a good fit. So that's the purpose of my call. And they go, oh, okay. That's great. I'm like, okay, right, when you're ready, tell me a little bit, emphasis, of what it is that's made you reach out. Because we all have it, don't they? People can waffle on for about 40 minutes.
Do you know what? This is a good point to just stop at for a second is I think people get put off by speaking to people because they say they haven't got the time to do it because people just go on and on and on about their dogs, right? So how could you set that question up maybe differently or split it into maybe a couple of different questions then?
Good question.
I know. Anyone would think I've been podcasting for a little while.
Dick. So what would I do? I would ask them to summarize the key points or the key things that's made them reach out. If they could name 2 things that that's made them reach out. So the struggles, or even, what else? It's about breaking it down, isn't it? And going like, or even if you set it up a bit poorly and you do find that they're going off into a little bit of a rant, or, that constant long-winded bit.
That free reign of telling you every single thing, which also, by the way, includes loads of the bad things and then go, but he's a really good dog. You always get that.
All the time. But yeah, having the ability and the confidence, because you've got like a script or something to follow, to be able to go, oh, let me just stop you there, because this is the information that we would go into if you were to enroll with us. So let me just backtrack a bit. So just so I'm clear, the key points are, I don't know, loose lead, recall, and kicking off at other dogs. Don't know.
Cracking off, as one of our clients calls it.
I love it. Yeah, so let me summarize. Have I got that right? Perfect. Brilliant. Right. Then the next part of it, you've got to break it down and go, right, what do I want to understand from it? So for me, the idea of that sales call, that discovery call, is to identify the pain point. What is it that's made them reach out? How long has that pain point been happening for? I mean, if it's preventative and it's puppy, slightly different, so maybe change the pain to what are you hoping by doing, like investing in some training, you're going to get that puppy to do? What does life with that puppy look like?
Yeah.
And that can bleed into the other scenario as well, but you can have a bit more pain if they're ringing you for a reason, like if there's a behaviour that they don't like.
So I actually quite like asking that question and projecting themselves in the future 12 months.
Yes.
And say, what would you like life to look like if it was 12 months' time?
Yeah. It's good. It's a powerful question. And it's, you really have to, you really want them to feel connected to you. You want them to feel heard. So you've done the bit about why they've rang. How long has it been going on for? How good or bad does it make them feel? I like to give people a scale. If I'm feeling a bit, I'm not sure how much of a problem this is for you. It's like a gut feel. And it comes with practice the more you keep doing these things. So that gut feel will come in strong. And if I'm feeling a little bit uncertain, I might go, so on a scale of 1 to 10 then, 10 being you absolutely cannot stand this behaviour and it is going to lead to drastic decisions on whether or not we keep the dog or what happens. And 0 being it's totally fine, I'm not bothered. Where does that one particular behaviour fit on that scale? And for me, if it's anything below a 5, I'm like, interesting, okay. The desire's not 100% there. So it gives you feedback, it gives you information. And you can use that later, but make a note of it. But then if you've got someone who's like, it's at a 9 or like an 11, everybody always gives you numbers that are not in the scale. I'm 110%. It's like, oh God, it's 100. Anyway, it gives you that understanding, I suppose, of what that real expectation is, where their desire is. Do they really want to fix this? Or has somebody said to them in passing comment in the park or something like, oh, you need to get that dog under control. But if it actually doesn't bother you and you're ringing off of a rebound effect, that reaction, well, they're not going to invest anyway.
No.
So doing that type of approach versus, oh, yeah, so your dog's not really good on recall. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I can totally help with that. We've got one-to-one sessions that I can do that with. I've got a recall workshop that's coming up in a few weeks. That can only house like 5 people and I've already got like 3 spaces full, so I've only got 2 spaces left. Or you could do one-to-one, and the one-to-ones, you can choose how many sessions you want, but they're about 60 minutes and you're laughing because it's true.
I'm absolutely laughing because that's what I used to do.
Yeah, because all you've heard is recall and our brains go, dog, recall, I know how to fix that.
Here's all the things.
Here's the stuff that I can do. It's like, oh, so what training techniques have you tried before? That's another one I hear people say all the time. Does it matter? It's not fucking working. That's why they're ringing you. It doesn't matter.
And even if they are the same training techniques, it's the methodology, like the person delivering it or the rapport with the person might not have been right. And the whole situation may have been set up incorrectly. So don't be dismayed when somebody says, oh, we've had a reward-based trainer, for example, and that's what you are before, and we've tried that before. Don't then think, oh God, what else can I do then? If that doesn't work, what else can I do?
Yeah, you don't know.
You probably just need to revisit the thing that they did, and it probably was executed maybe not as well as it should have been, or the commitment from the client maybe wasn't there and they didn't do it as much as they should have done. So there's loads of things to find out there on your sessions.
Yeah, huge amounts.
Yeah.
But you can see the questions that come out of our mouths as trainers, can't you? Go like, oh, okay, so yeah, what methods have you used? And why do you not think that that's working? And it's a bit judgmental.
Comes across a little bit judgmental.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Or you may even throw in oh yeah, no, that's, recall's like easy peasy. Like we do it all the time. So all we'd need to do is just find something that really motivates your dog and we'll take that out with us and then we'll go to the park and then we'll do it. And already you're trying to provide a solution on that phone. And the person receiving it is like, I'm not ready to receive this information yet because I'm not in that headspace. I was calling to see if ultimately, if you've not listened to it yet, go and find our episode on the customer journey. But you have to think about what are they hoping to get out of that call themselves. So when we do our calls, like we're setting up the purpose of that call. Like on this call, I want to find out why you're calling me and to see if we're actually going to work well together. And if I do think we're going to work well together, only then will I tell you about the program.
Yeah, and it may be that we don't actually get to that point.
Yeah.
And we direct them somewhere else.
We turn people away all the time,
going,
actually, it's just not a good fit.
Yeah.
Like either that pain point is a really low figure, so it might be like at a 1. I'm like, do you know what? Being completely honest, I don't think it's training that you need. I'm happy to keep having this conversation with you. But realistically, if you're only at a 1, your desire is not there to want to do this. So I then need to do a better job at understanding what's made you reach out today. Because if you're at a 1, you're not calling somebody off of a 1.
No.
So it's a reaction to something, or that's a surface level answer and there's something else underneath it. Yeah. And it's our job to extract that information. And it's hard because, again, nobody teaches this.
No, they don't.
Nobody tells you when you're a dog trainer, have these types of conversations with people.
Yeah, and there's also people listening that would be horrified at us turning people away.
Yeah.
Wouldn't there? People, I'm sure, if you're listening to this, you might have just gone, what? Why would you say no to somebody? How stupid is that? When we get a gut feel about somebody. So if it isn't what you've just described there and saying the pain isn't high enough, the other thing might be there's certain things that they're saying or certain phrases or a certain way they're speaking that sometimes we're like, do you know what? I don't think this is going to work.
Pain in the backside.
You're going to be an absolute bane of my life. And this is where, as dog trainers, we love to whinge about how annoying our clients are and how they don't do the work and how they don't stick to it and they're not committed to it. Well, did you find out about the client before you actually decided to work with them? And maybe you could have got a bit of an idea that that was going to be the case. And in which case, I'm sorry, but maybe the onus is on you a little bit. Yeah. But without that conversation, and I appreciate that most people don't have a conversation, how can you possibly find that out through an email or a text message?
Yeah. Yeah. I've even seen it where people will say, but I've told them how I work and what my expectations are of them. I'm like, great, but what were their expectations of you?
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I've told them that I will set them homework at the end of each task and each session, and they need to do that before the next one.
See, that's another thing. I know we're talking about the actual onboarding process or, initial contact process here, but I find that gripes me that people go, here's the homework.
Yeah.
You must do it by next week. And if they don't do it, again, we client bash.
Yeah.
We don't actually understand the reason why. Is there a genuine reason if something happened? And maybe even if they tell us the reason that something's happened, like, oh, the kids, needed more attention this week or something happened, a bereavement. In fact, like we kind of go, yeah, okay. But we don't really, I don't think we really put ourselves in the client space. We don't really look at it from their perspective. Because we're dog focused and
we're going, but the dog's now missing out.
But the poor dog is now neglected because you have had more important stuff going on. So I just think for me, that whole homework thing, don't get me wrong, we always have backup notes and videos of the exercises where we feel that it would support an owner additionally. We don't do it as a routine thing. We don't expect people to send us videos and things. We encourage it. We would say, do you know what? If you've got any videos or anything like that, anything that you can want to share with us, whether it's a struggle, whether it's a win, great. But we're not going to expect that from somebody every week because it's really hard. Like some people, I was thinking about this the other day, some people would really struggle to just set a camera up and get it right and get the positioning right. And actually the stress of doing that for somebody to be able to film something, if it's like you doing something.
Do you know what?
It's really hard
I
sometimes.
had a client once and I'd asked them to send me some videos and she never did. And when we were talking about it, because it came up in conversation, she was like, oh, I keep trying to send you videos, but I just can't, I haven't got enough hands. And she was trying to show me her lead walking exercises. She's like, I haven't got enough hands. And I was like, how are you trying to record it? And she's like, well, I've got the phone in one hand, the lead, the treats, and I was like, why don't you just balance the camera against like something? And she's like, oh my God. Like didn't even think about doing that.
Yeah. But even that though sometimes is a bit tricky for somebody. Like I was doing a training session with a dog in the park and I wanted to film us doing some play and some like fun stuff with food and whatever, just to show the owners, because it was like a bit of a trained for you program we were doing. And I could not find the right spot. The tree I was trying to do it against, it kept slipping, the phone kept slipping down or it would just go off or something like that. And it did take me a while. It was only because I was like, no, I am sending these videos because I promised I would anyway. And I really want to do it. But even then, you can see why. If somebody's not got the inclination to do it, they're just going to go, oh, I can't do that. It's too hard. Yeah. Is it that important anyway? And because they're not looking at it like we would as the dog professional, we're thinking of the dog and it's us and we want to get these results. I think that we need to stop and think how something simple for us like that could be really quite You know, I'm thinking of my mum, for example. If I asked her to set a camera up and film something with a dog, I think she'd really struggle with it. And that isn't because she's stupid or she can't do it. She just really struggle with that concept of getting it right because she doesn't do that sort of thing. It doesn't come naturally to her, whereas we do that kind of thing all the time. So you got to always think about somebody's skill set and not necessarily in the dog mechanics, is it? It's about just the little tiny little things, isn't it?
But then all of that comes down to that conversation you're having in that initial sales process, because you will, you're not going to go into that level of detail of like, oh, so this is how we're going to set everything up. That's not there. But you're getting the questions you should be asking should be getting you a really good flavour for what that person is like. Almost think of it like going on a first date.
Yeah,
you're trying to understand more about that person without getting their whole life story and all the detail. You want to know if you like them enough to see them a second time.
Yeah.
It's pretty much all you're doing.
Yeah.
And then they're doing the exact same thing to you. I need to know if I like you enough to take this to the next step, which is to then buy your services.
Yeah.
And that's all we need to do. But we're not spending the time asking the questions on that phone, and then we get all stumbly and you can see it comes from fear and this panic of just like, oh yeah, I can help. Like we say, I've got all of these different things, but it's down to you. It's your choice. I'll tell you what, you go away and think about it. And we've got people that are working with us that have said this to people and they've realized afterwards. But it's like, yeah, you go away, you think about it. No pressure from me. And because I don't want to be salesy, I'm going to leave it all to you. And imagine again if that was on a dating bit. If someone had done that, would you really want to see them again for the next time? You might think they're a little bit of a wet lettuce.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Wet lettuce. I love wet lettuce. I used to work with somebody who had a wet lettuce handshake.
It
was really feeble. I remember shaking his hand and like going, oh.
Yeah.
I instantly judged him on his handshake.
Yeah. But this is what we do though as human beings, and we have to be aware of it. Like you will be judging people. And this is where I've certainly done it and will continue to do it because it's human nature and I fight against it all the time. If somebody picks up the phone and they answer in a certain way, immediately I'm like, oh God, no. Just no, I do not want to work with you. And I've already made a decision. However, I have to do both of us the decency in offering a service. And at that time, the service is having a conversation to find out more. And I would say it's a good 70-30 that I'm wrong. Once I've got into it and the questions are being asked in such a way as to find out more about them, I'm like, do you know what? Actually, I think we'd work really well.
Yeah. And also, it's interesting, isn't it? That initial couple of seconds of your initial, because you do it all the time when you see people and people walk past you like, ooh, but you don't know anything about them. But with that, you don't know what's happened just before that phone call.
No.
If it was a prearranged thing, great. But even so, something could have just happened with the dog. The dog could have done something really annoying that the person's just like, rah, and then gone, hello, and answered the phone in a certain way and then been a bit, because they feel a little bit anxious about something that's maybe just happened. Now, this might not be the case, but I think in some cases it's worth just thinking what's happened just before that phone call or what's led up to that this week. Or they're expecting you to be like every other dog trainer they might have spoken to. Yeah, they're going to have their backup already
because, like we were saying at the start of this, sales, I need to do the calling bit so I can find out more. But am I just going to be sold to?
Sold to, exactly. And also, going back to that bit we talked about the videoing earlier, a lot of people use that as a shoehorn in value to people and say, so what you'll get is you'll get this many, you'll get a session and we can do this, and then you'll get, we'll get a group set up and you get to send me videos and I get to assess them, and that can happen really regularly. And even that, which you think you're giving value to, someone could think, oh my good God, I've expected to send videos and you're going to assess them and judge me on it. Yeah. And that almost might turn somebody the opposite way and go, I actually don't want to do that. I just want someone to just be with me on this journey and help me with my dog. I don't want, if I feel that I want to do a video for you, great, but I don't want to be expected to do it like I'm at school if I don't. So already you're setting that precedent maybe of what is going to be expected of them. And then they go, oh, no, I don't want that. So think about that as well.
Yeah.
Every little bit of information you give them should be strategic in the reason why you're giving them that information.
Yeah. Every time you are telling somebody what you are going to deliver, you're potentially losing money.
Yeah.
I would honestly say...
Oh, imagine there was a little like dingy bell.
Yeah.
Ding! 50 quid. Ding! 100 quid.
If I look back over the first few years of my... I don't even think I can call it business life. My hobby dog training life. It's just horrendous. Like,
oh God, mine was a hobby for 13 years by all accounts.
Yeah, reams of emails would go out with justifications as to why you should book with me, all off the back of an inquiry that said, how much is it? And I would go, thank you so much for reaching out. Just so you know, I've been working with, and at the time I was like, I've been working with Sarah Whitehead. She's amazing. She's got an MSc in all of this. Go and check her out. Here's a link here. She's been on this TV program. All that stuff, all of it.
I mean, well done for plugging Sarah. She's probably appreciate that, but hey ho.
I was like, but I'm like her protege. I'm working with her. And I did all that stuff. And then I was like, right, and you can get 1 session, 2 session, 3 session, 5 session. And it was like, oh God, I think it was like £200 or something for the 5 session. And I was like, oh my God, 200 quid for 5 sessions? No way. But I'm going to put it down. And then I did more justification. I was like, so I've been doing this for so many years now. Here's the types of dogs that I've worked with. You've told me that you've got a Jack Russell. I've worked with so many Jack Russells and we've worked on X, Y, Z and blah, blah, blah.
Oh my
and
God,
if you
I've
know,
done this too.
if I don't feel like I've got the answer, then I've got Sarah in my back pocket and then I've got a network. And already I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ, like how much stuff off the back of how much is it to work with you?
Imagine if you just put 200 quid as the reply. Arguably, that would be a better response.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that anyone should just do that, by the way.
But it's just painful, isn't it? So I genuinely believe if I look at our current business model now versus that back then, I would say that has lost us over 50k.
I reckon I could be a millionaire by now if I'd applied that at the start.
Oh, yeah. But you know what I mean? Like, realistically, our 50k is probably being quite light.
I was going to say, surely more.
6 figures easy.
Yeah.
That's lost us all that money by doing that approach. Yeah. And even by doing that approach and getting work off the back of it, I've put myself in some very interesting scenarios where I rock up at somebody's house because I've never spoken to them, I've never met, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm a little bit fearful for my life here.
Oh yeah, I've been in that situation.
for a cash payment as well.
Or the other thing is you're not even sure who you spoke to.
Nope.
What their relationship is or what the dynamic of the family is. If there's a husband and wife, you know, arguably you don't ask all of those questions on the call, the initial discovery call, but I think you get a pretty good feel for somebody will mention husband, wife, kids.
Well, yeah, because you should be asking who else is involved.
Yeah, but you can, so you can ask that, but you should know who it is that you're actually going to be, who are the people that are going to be involved in the delivery, like when you go and do the sessions.
Yeah.
So like that for a start off. But yes, you don't know what you're walking into.
No. I remember downloading an app for like a map thing so that Darren knew where I was just in case I didn't like, and I was thinking, this isn't good. This isn't right.
I used to have that for home visits at the Blue Cross. There was some really tricky situations. And I think they've probably changed this by now, but like young females on their own we didn't have mobile. No, didn't have mobile phones. Maybe, I don't know. We did, but they weren't like something that you'd carry. Like they weren't big then. That's how old I am. Yeah, and there was a couple of really like dicey situations I was in. Yeah. It's really scary, isn't it, when that happens?
Yeah, and I actually remember like casting my mind back now. It was almost shoehorned in a little bit, maybe more subconsciously than you'd think, but to be told to think like that, to think safety first, to think who can you tell where you are, instead of like, oh, hold on, Why are you even taking that job on if you don't know where you're going and who you're working with?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make any sense.
When you look at it in
It's
that kind of way, it's so
stupid.
obvious, but yeah.
So that conversation bit is so important to really understand who you're going to work with, what they're actually hoping to achieve from working with you, as well as you asking them, like, what are you hoping to get from it? You get an idea, you get an understanding. Ask who the decision makers are, because how many times do you hear, oh, that sounds great, I'm just going to go speak to my partner.
Mm-hmm.
Well, great, okay, fine. If your partner's there, get on the phone.
Or we can arrange another call with your partner.
Yep. All of that stuff. Whoever is involved in the decision needs to be present. And if they're not there and they're part of that decision process, you know right there and then you're not going to get too much further forward. You might, but these are where these skills have to come in and go, right, manage the expectations. That discovery call is to discover more about each other. It's that first date.
I think we should call it a match call. Almost.
Ooh,
yeah. See?
Interesting.
So it's a match to see whether it works for both of you. That's how we would recommend people look at that call.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I feel like there's so much more to go into on this topic, and I could literally talk about it for days.
Well, we haven't even gone into the process of actually getting a client on board, the onboarding process, the whole systems and all of that.
Yeah, no.
Have we?
So this snippet is purely to think about when you are talking to someone. And if you still want to liaise on email, we don't recommend it. But if you're going to, then you need to be thinking like this. Stop telling everybody what you're great at and start asking more questions about that person. The person.
The human.
The human, not the dog. You'll get surface level answers of the dog. It's your job to assess the dog when you're out there. You can't do that if the human's not letting you in.
Mm-hmm. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you'd like to find out more about us, visit us at caninebusinessacademy.com.